The time is 4 o'clock. We bring to you the news around Africa. Opposition leaders in Gabon have condemned the government ban on them leaving the country. A spokesman for the Interior Ministry said the move followed what he described as inflammatory remarks by the opposition leader, Jean Ping. Last week, the authorities said members of the opposition who refused to recognize the government could no longer appear on state media. Mr. Ping narrowly lost to the incumbent Ali Bongo in last year's presidential election. He alleged fraud and said he should have been sworn in as head of state. The current head of the African Union, Guinea's President Alpha Conde, has praised Friday's decision by Kenya's Supreme Court to annul the result of last month's presidential election. President Conde said the judgment does not honor to Africa and proves that democracy is now installed on the continent. He also said that preferring the legal approach to violence showed maturity and responsibility. Kenya's opposition leader went to court after the Electoral Commission announced that incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta had won the presidential election with 54% of the vote. The Supreme Court said that the election was not carried out in accordance with the Constitution, highlighting a problem with the transmission of results and ordered a rerun. Police in Rwanda have confirmed they have arrested a prominent opposition leader, Diane Rwigara. A mother and a sister have also been detained. Ms. Rwigara and members of her family have not been seen since Tuesday last week. She has been accused of using fraud signatures when she was gathering support for this year's presidential campaign. Ms. Rwigara was disqualified from running in last month's election, but incumbent Paul Kagame won with more than 98% of the vote. France Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian is in Libya for talks with rival political and military actors in the country's western and eastern regions. Like its EU allies, France has recently been pressuring Libya's warring factions to set aside their differences in the hopes that it will stem the flow of illegal migration from the North African state and the resurgence of extremists like the Islamic State. Libya is still suffering from deep political, military and regional divisions, with two rival governments based in the east and the west of the country. The internationally recognized authorities sit in the capital, Tripoli, where the French foreign minister started his visit before moving on to the western city of Misrata and then to the east of the country. In July, French President Emmanuel Macron brokered talks in Paris between the Libyan Prime Minister and his military counterpart, Field Marshal Khalifa Haftar, who commands forces in large part of eastern and southern Libya. At the end of those talks, they announced an agreement to call for a ceasefire and to unify key institutions, despite the absence of other key factions that make up the complex web of rivalry. Somalia's government has made a starting request for immediate military assistance to prevent Islamist militant Al-Shabaab from supplying uranium to Iran. In a letter, Foreign Minister Yusuf Garad says the militants have captured a region with uranium deposit and have been strip mining the component. The Somalia is said to have the potential for uranium, according to past findings by the International Atomic Energy Agency, but this has not been developed. The claim, which has not been independently verified, has not revealed how this artisanal mining of uranium works and what evidence it has to prove that Al-Shabaab is working on it or plans to send the deposit to Iran. The letter also described Al-Shabaab as being linked with the so-called Islamic State, when in fact it has been long associated with Al-Qaeda, and that the current problem is too big even for the African Union forces based in Somalia. That was Africa Today. I am Damilola Aroyeun. Good afternoon and thank you so much for listening.